We're the Soil Sisters. I'm Cam.
And I'm Leanne.
And we have huge news. We have finally gotten a garden here in my. So whether you have a backyard, a balcony, or getting to borrow a yard like us, we're going to start seeding in trays today. So stick around. We're going to give you step-by-step instructions. We're going to give you tips for your success. And we are also going to have a Q&A at the end with the most common questions. Okay, so we've been waiting for this moment ever since we landed in Mallorca a couple of months ago. And a friend of ours is going to let us borrow his garden to grow all our food in. So we're very excited about that. Subscribe and grow with us. And this is the start of our first Soil Sister garden. First, I'm going to show you what soil I'm using, what supplies you need. I'm going to seed the seeds in the trays, and then I'm going to label them, and then I'm going to cover them, and I'm going to show you everything, and water them. Yeah, water them. In case you're wondering, when and why do you start seeds in seed trays? Basically, when it's too cold to seed them directly outside, you can put the seed tray in your windowsill. In a cold climate, for example, when the growing season isn't long enough to start them outside, seed trays gives you a longer growing season. Or, like in my case, I don't have access to my garden yet.
So down below, we put together for you a free supply list and also all the seeds that we're planting today. So grab the free PDF down below.
Let's talk about what you'll need to start your own seeds. And you don't need a lot of fancy tools. Simplicity is the Soil Sisters way. First of all, you're going to need your seeds. And then you're going to need a seed tray, which looks like this. You can get this at your local garden center or nursery. And then you're going to need to have a tray underneath the seed tray. So I get these trays from IKEA. They're actually shoe trays. What I really like about these trays is they're sturdy. The next thing we're going to need is labels. And I buy these cheap plastic labels. You can get them at a dollar store or you can order them online. When you write on your labels, you're going to need to have a waterproof marker. Very important. The next thing you're going to need is a spray bottle. You're going to need some saran wrap. If you don't have lids for your seed trays, you can use saran wrap. And I'm going to use the knife to poke holes in the saran wrap. And then I'm going to use this for nighttime. It's their little blanket. This is fiber cloth. You get this at your local nursery or garden center. And now we're going to show you the seeding process step by step. Today I'm going to seed some leafy greens that can tolerate the winter climate here in the Mediterranean. So I'm going to be seeding mustard greens, which are from Asia. And I'm going to be seeding a kind called Red Giant. And they are spicy, so they're really yummy to have in your salads. The second thing I'm going to seed is tat soy, which is a Chinese cabbage. And then I'm going to seed two kinds of Swiss chard, some rocket arugula, some winter salad, which is also called lamb's lettuce, and then 4 kinds of kale. And I'm also going to seed spinach, some lettuce, and some nasturtiums. Before I start seeding my seed trays, I have looked at the weather 10 days ahead, and it's going to be approximately between 18 to 20 degrees Celsius during the day, which is about 65 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And at nighttime, it's going to go down to approximately 13 to 17 degrees Celsius, which is about 55 to 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Of course, you're going to need, when you start seeding, some soil. What you want to get is seed starting soil mix, because seeds like less nutrients when they germinate. Now, the soil that I got is from a local nursery here in Mallorca. And as you can see, it's quite fluffy. And that's good because it contains quite a bit of peat and coconut husk. And that will be really good for drainage. It's also really good for oxygen in the soil because roots do need oxygen to grow. Seed starting soil mix is also fine grained and has no large particles in it because you want the little sprout to be able to make it through the surface of the soil. Another good thing about seed starting soil mix is it retains water easily. Okay, so now we're going to fill the seed tray with soil. And I also want to mention that I've added a little water to my seed soil starting mix here. So it's a little moist. I'm going to fill this tray. So what I'm going to do is just take a handful of soil and if you find some large parts, you can take them out. I'm just gonna fill it like this. So now that I've filled the seed tray with the seed starting soil mix, I'm going to take my labels and put them in the seed tray. On the back of every seed packet, there's a lot of useful information. For example, at what depth you will need to plant your seeds. So on this package for my mustard greens, it says 1 centimeter. So I'm going to plant these seeds 1 centimeter deep. I'm first going to make little holes about 1 centimeter each. That's about 1 centimeter. Okay. And then I'm going to take the seeds and put some in the palm of my hand. I'm going to empty it carefully out like this. And they're very small, so I'm going to put about 1 in each one if I can. I'm going to try to get the leftover seeds back in the package. And then I'm going to lightly cover them up with soil. I do not want to press down. You do not want to compact this soil too much. There, when you've done your first row. Okay, so we're going to keep going. The next thing I'm going to seed is some patio, which is the Chinese cabbage. And on the back of this seed package, it says I should sow the seed 1 centimeter deep. 1 centimeter is about 1/4 of an inch, by the way. So I'm going to make my little holes again. Put some seeds in the palm of my hand. Not too many. I'm going to give you a little tip here as I go along. Now I'm noticing that this package is actually several years old. It's from 2022. So what I'm going to do then is, because not all the seeds are going to sprout, I'm going to put 2 or 3 seeds in every hole. That way, one is bound to sprout. I'm going to cover it up gently, not press down too hard. Now that we've seeded in our first tray, we're going to seed in our second tray. And here I'm going to seed 4 different kinds of kale, arugula, and some nasturtiums. Now, when I seed the arugula, I'm going to seed 4 to 5 seeds at a time because I want them to come up in bunches. Okay, so I finished seeding the whole tray. And one thing that I want you to keep in mind is I probably usually would have seeded all these seeds directly in the ground. But since we're a little late in the season and we're not going to get to access our new garden until about 2 weeks, I want to make sure that I have seedlings before it gets too cold and it gets to be winter here. Okay, so now that we have prepared both seed trays with our seeds, we are ready to water them. So I'm going to use the spray bottle here and I've put it on spray. So I'm going to make sure these are thoroughly soaked. It's going to take a little time, but so I want to go over this over and over again. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, because I don't have any lids to go with my seed tray, I am going to use saran wrap from the kitchen instead. So I'm going to make sure it's underneath at one end of the tray. I'm going to pull it tightly. I'm going to cut it with pair of scissors. This will keep the moisture in, and it would also keep the soil a little warmer. Once I'm done that, I'm going to take my knife, and I'm going to make some holes in it. Okay, we have finished the seed tray. Okay, so once I've put the saran wrap on my seed tray, I am going to cut a piece of this garden fabric so my seeds have a little blankie for the night. Now, garden fabric can also be called cover cloth. It's also called cover fleece. It has many different names. Basically, it's a thin fabric, but it will keep the seedlings warm tonight if the temperatures drop. So I've already cut out a piece. And tonight, in a few hours, I'm going to put this over the seed tray. And I'm going to make sure to wrap it in case the wind picks up. It won't blow away. So I'm going to tuck it in. So I'm going to tuck it under both sides. That's what it's going to look like. Welcome to our Q&A. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. Okay. I'm a little confused about the climate zone. Yeah. Who can do this in the world today? Today is October 30th. Okay, basically we're in a pretty warm climate zone down here by the Mediterranean. We're quite close to the equator. So I would say you're in the southern United States or in southern Europe. If you're Costa Rica or Hawaii, you can do this now. The reason why we're doing this now is because we got a garden. So I'm racing against the clock here to get these little seedlings in before it gets too cold. So I'm going to be in just the nick of time here. But if you have a greenhouse, Or if you have a glassed-in veranda, for example, and live in a colder climate, you can do this now too. Okay. Okay. So what else was I? Okay. So you're documenting this while you're. Yeah. Actually, it's really important to keep a garden journal because then I can look back previous years in my gardening journal and see when I've done certain things. What I've done is I've bought a new little journal for Mallorca, and it looks like this. This one costs $3. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And on the first page, I basically wrote the date that I seeded, and I wrote everything that I seeded, but I also wrote the temperature, the high temperature of the day, and then the low temperature at night. So then I can look back next year and see what the temperature was and do it about the same time. So you're logging everything in this year. So if you want to check it next year and see when and what you did and what worked, you can do that. Yeah, because you're not going to remember it. Okay, that's good. Okay, so what else? Okay, so now I'm looking at you watering these little guys. Yeah, what this spray water thing, and what temperature is the water in the spray bottle? Yeah, the spray bottle should be room temperature. Don't shock your poor little seeds and give them icy cold water. That's not a good idea. Yes. In the beginning, before the seeds have germinated and sprouted and become seedlings, you're going to need to use the spray bottle because otherwise you'll drown them. But basically, once they become seedlings, you can use the watering can. Okay. And how often are you going to water these little guys? I make sure when they're seeds and they haven't sprouted and become seedlings yet, you need to make sure that they're always moist. Okay. So you're going out there about 2 to 3 times a day or what? Oh, yeah. I'm checking on them all the time, like a mommy does. Okay. I'm checking on them constantly, running in and out all day. But that's just me. Okay. So now we're planting 2 seed trays. This is a lot of plants. Yeah. It's a lot of plants. If you think of it's 12 times 8, you're the mathematician. So that's 96. So 96 plants in each tray. Okay, so we got almost 200 little plants. Yeah, okay. And that's a lot. That is a lot. And that's because we're borrowing the garden. So I'm going to provide him and his family with food too. And then it's us. Okay. So we're going to be about like 6, 7 people for these greens that I'm growing. So that's why I'm doing a lot. And then, of course, I'm very excited. So what tends to happen then is you do a little overboard. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to get lots of yummies here. Plus, a lot of the seeds that I used in the seed trays were old and they expired 2022. So that way I'm just making sure that if some of them don't come up, I have enough. Okay. So these seed trays now, when you're done with them, are you going to wash them and use them again? Oh, absolutely. You can hose them off and use them again. Not a problem. So, okay. I think that's about it. If you have any questions that I missed here, please put them in the comment section below and we are going to answer them for you. I'll be answering them. Yeah, you'll be answering those questions, but I'll make sure they get answered. Yeah. So remember now that every gardener learns through trial and error, and it's a creative process. So don't worry if you make some mistakes because that will only be a learning experience. And remember, these are plants. You can't control nature. So you can't control everything in this process. Okay, go lie down, Moth. Good boy. Okay. So remember, follow us along on this journey. You're going to love to follow us next and see how to take care of the seedlings, which ones grew, which ones did best, and also follow us to see our new garden. And don't forget to press the like button. And also don't forget to download your free PDF below. And also subscribe if you want to follow us and our seedling journey here in Mallorca.